Okay.
when you're a young boy going into your teens,
Yeah.
what kind of music did you listen to?
Johnny Cash
Johnny Cash?
and Hank Williams.
What were your songs? What songs?
Well, Johnny Cash, I Walk the Line. Hank Williams was like, he sang more ballads. They were so long ago, nobody plays them anymore.
Yeah, no.
But you still hear Johnny Cash songs all the time. You know, especially when he played at that prison, you know, Folsom Prison Blues. And Perry Como, who I met.
You met him?
Yeah, I met him. I was dancing next to him in a dance hall in Florida. And that's it. We used to go to the little dance hall places and we'd sneak a drink or two in or hide them in the bushes and come out, and because we were only like 16, 17, 18 at that time. So we had good times. I played a lot of soccer and a lot of cricket.
Cricket?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we'd play on a Saturday and we'd play all day, and when you were hungry, you'd go off and go home and get something to eat and then come back and then you carry on playing. I remember in those days, the parks weren't open on Sundays.
Really?
Which was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the parks were locked and the police would be there if you went, because we used to climb over the railing and go and play soccer on the field, but we always get chased by the police. I always thought that was so stupid. What are kids supposed to do on a weekend?
Yeah, especially on a Sunday, and especially with, you know, parents and...
Well, they figured you should be. They figured you should be in church, I guess.
I guess, yeah. All day though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I used to go see Liverpool play. You know, it wasn't too far from where I lived. We'd go down there and we'd go in and stand there and shout for Liverpool. When you were going out the gate, you could lift your feet off the ground, and the crowd would walk you out. That's what we used to do.
Really?
Yeah.
We all have people who inspire us, right? You know, whether it's sports or some type of leader.
Mm-hmm.
Who was, growing up, who was your biggest inspiration?
I don't know, really. I just wanted to come to the States. I was always inspired to come to the States.
Okay.
I didn't have anybody in particular. I guess I looked up to my eldest brother when I was growing up, but he didn't come to the States. He was in England. I always wanted to come to the States. It was always, I figured with the education I got, I wouldn't be able to do well in England.
Okay.
I don't know, it's a social thing in England, I always thought, and I wouldn't get anywhere in England where I could make something of myself over in the States. But I went to Canada, but I couldn't come to the States directly.
No?
No. I could have if I'd have known people in the States. And the only person I knew in the States was my aunt, Helen. And she lived in California, and she was in a nursing home. So
yeah,
I couldn't, she couldn't vouch for me or anything. So,
no.
At that time when I left England, I think I said this before. You could go to Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, or Canada. Now, they would help you. The countries would help you because they wanted tradesmen. So by then I was a tradesman. I was a tool and die maker, and so I applied to come to Canada, and it was fairly cheap to come to Canada. So I came over, and I knew somebody here that I'd worked with in Peyton Calvert's, where I saved my apprenticeship. So we came over, and I got a job. I didn't get a job with him because he was kind of not doing well in the job market. It was kind of a bad time, but I got a job, and then I stayed there for years, probably 3 or 4 years, maybe 5, and then I went to another place and got another job that was closer to home, and then I applied for a job at Northern Electric, which was a big company, and they were located in Toronto. So I went for an interview there, and I got the job, and I stayed there just a year. And I didn't like the way those big companies run.
Yeah.
So I left there and came back to Montreal, and got my old job back in Montreal, and stayed there for another 3 or 4 years, and then I moved to the States.
Okay.
So I got a job right away in the States in Plattsburgh, because I'd worked with the same people, different company but the same people. So I went to work for them, and then after I think it was 5 or 6 years, I started my own business.
Oh my God! How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh my goodness, it's so great to see you.
Thank you.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, hi.
You loving Florida life?
Yeah, do. It's nice.
Yeah. It's nicer up here though, right?
Now it is, yeah.
Oh yeah, you're doing a documentary on the franchise, the big company that he put his heart and soul into. That's growing. We now have across the road.
Yeah, I know.
That's what Papa's saying.
That was always my next aim.
Yeah.
That was always my next. They wanted to buy me.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
And I said, no, I should be buying you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You know, a fellow looks a lot like he used to work here.
He wasn't as good looking.
No, not here.
No,
How are you doing, sir? Good.
Yeah.
Hey, you should have got me, given her a hug.
I think I did.
Oh, you did?
All right. Do you know this guy?
Cheeks, you bring your bus out. Yeah, exactly. How you been, yeah? Good.
How you doing? Good to see you. Hands are a little tied, but
Hey, it's good to get one of those shirts.
Huh? Yeah, I know. I got some. I'll hook you up.
Medium.
Mediums, yeah. You want to come in and look around?
nice to see you.
It was nice seeing you.
Well, you're coming back in, huh? Where are you going? I thought you were coming back in.
I'm not coming back in. I only have to take half days. I don't have to work half days.
She's got a special
Well,
deal.
nothing's changed then.
Mr. T.
I'll see you again.
How we doing? Twice! Wow, my lucky!
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I heard you are Mr. Titherington.
Hi.
I'm Mackenzie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I actually just started here about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I'm
You took Bob's office.
Yeah.
so
I wish you best of luck.
thank you. It was so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So this is the old office then, Pop?
I think so, yeah. Was, yeah. I need the teens to wall somewhere.
My God, how you doing, buddy?
Good, how are
Good to
you?
see you.
Good to see you.
You gonna take a little spin through?
You know the cap for Ollie, the vitamins, the square
Wow.
cap? So we put these cells in, and it's all cell manufacturing. Remember, this used to be lining at one point.
Right.
Pop was a good boss. He didn't really directly work, or I didn't directly work for him, and I think he did that purposely so that I wouldn't, resent things that he was, or my boss was going to tell me that I was doing wrong, because there were many of those things at different times. Because I was learning, and I was growing up, and I was, at the beginning, when I started working there, I was 16 and stuff, and doing some different things, and so it was Uncle Derek, who was my boss for the first many years I worked there, and then it was Uncle Bill, who was my boss for many years that I worked there. So, my inner struggles were more with them, and Pop kept himself away from all that, which was, smart on his part.
He couldn't give all the good ideas.
Well, it was really smart on his part, because, again, they took the brunt of it and really helped me to be a different and a better person, I feel. And, I don't know that, you're going to kind of get that again, like you said, from it being your boss and your father. That same sort of guidance. You might get a different direction that you might take that. So I think him doing it that way probably worked out for the best.
I understand that you worked for the company. What was your role in Mulgrave?
Well, we started when we were in high school. He would bring boxes of, there were hinge caps, and you would have to close the hinge caps. And there was big boxes, and we always, in our basement, was full of boxes. And so that was our introduction to Mulgrave. And then like I said, in high school, the same thing. It started in a small building on Sharon Avenue, and they would be working around the clock. And I remember one time my uncle called me, I was going to a party, and he called me, and he's like, somebody called in, so we need you to come in at 11 o'clock. And I'm like, okay. So went to the party, and then had to get a ride over to the factory and then work the night shift. But it didn't happen a lot, but it did,
Right.
So I remember those times, and, working on the machines and that. Like I said, I didn't do it a lot, but I fell in or whatever I had to do. And then later on, after I got married, really is when I came back to the company, and I started off working for my dad and two other guys, and they started the lining part of the company.
Okay.
And I did the bookwork, and I was a secretary and did that type of stuff. And then from there, I went to, when we grew bigger, I went into sales at Mulgrave. And I did sales for a while. And then we were growing so much that we ended up needing somebody in HR. And that's when the HR formed. The one thing that I had a hard time with was going to the mall or going grocery shopping or something. I'd always run into somebody. And my role at Mulgrave was hiring and also firing. So that was kind of uncomfortable. But the way we did things, and when somebody was getting fired, they always knew what it was for. So they didn't seem to hold the uncomfortableness. They would come and talk to me. And
right.
It was good. It was good, but I think I was more feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an awkward, awkward run-in. And
knowing more about people than most people know about people in the community, because you would get it firsthand.
Right.
The different circumstances, so that was hard.
Yeah, it's, people take negative things, differently. So
right.
It must have been a difficult job, especially in human resources, hiring and firing. How has your knowledge of the industry now, has that shaped the way you interact with new people, or has that helped you in social environments?
Yeah, because you kind of get an understanding of there's always a whole different perspective than what you would even think, and we did a lot of talking in that, and it's the way somebody perceives you may not be the way you think you're being perceived. So, you know, turning that around and realizing that makes a big difference.
Right. And if you could tell the audience or whomever is watching this one or two sentences about your father to really portray who he is, what would you say to them?
He's really come from a background where he didn't have a lot, and he made a lot of risks, and he was able to do that by having, you know, being a strong person, and he's a very positive person, and he's always there for everybody. Anybody needs anything, he would literally give you the shirt off his back. He's given people, you know, someone likes your hat, here it is. You know, you like my tie, here you go.
Yeah.
You know, he just cares about everybody and wants everybody to be happy. So I had a whole different perspective of it, because it was always like, you know, be nice to your sister, you know, she's a girl, or, you know, if I needed something, I could easily, you know, get what I wanted.
Right.
And I remember my mother would, she was mad at me for something, and my father came home, and she told my father, and he's like, you know, talk to her. And so he came home and he said, so I guess this went on or whatever, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so what do you want to talk about?
You have to make up time. Yeah.
So yeah, it was, but you know, he was working a lot, so I mean, he was always there for me.
Right.
You know, if I ever needed anything, he was the one I went to. Like
Right.
he is now.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
if I need to vent about something.
You live.
Yeah.
You live 2 doors down here
Yeah.
as well as in Plattsburgh, so you've always had that close connection with your
Yeah.
father.
Mhm.
How has that helped you through your life and your personal struggles? How has your connection with your father aided you?
Well, it's always been nice that, you know, knowing that he's there if I need him, or if I need somebody to, hey, this is going on, what do you think? And you know,
Right.
He's good with advice, and he's always happy, and just, you know, you never get like grumpy or anything. He was
Right.
always, you know, a positive. So I look at that as being, you know, yeah, I gotta turn, you know, I'm gonna talk to him about it, then I gotta be positive about it.
Right. And so, you know, growing up, I talked to Pop, and he said you guys went on a lot of family vacations,
Mhm.
specifically, you know, the South Florida area. I
Yes.
remember even my father telling me about, you know, road trips down to Fort Lauderdale and such.
Yeah. Mhm.
Can you elaborate a little more on what you guys did as a family?
I always thought of us as a close family. I mean, we did a lot of things together, you know, like you said, on trips and stuff, and it was always, I don't think that anything was ever negative. It was always positive. You know, we'd have fun, we'd go swimming, or we'd, you know, do things. And
Well, I'm 57, the third child of mom Winifred and dad Geoffrey. Born in Montreal and LaSalle, Quebec. In 70 we moved to Plattsburgh, where we then lived from 70 to approximately, I think it was about mid 80s, early 80s. We moved from Olivetti in Plattsburgh to Champlain Park. No, not Champlain Park. I'm sorry. Down at Cliff Haven.
Cliff Haven, yeah. That's right.
Champlain Drive. And Dad built a house back then. We moved there in, I think, 82, 83, my last couple years of high school. From that time, or prior to that, always spent a lot of time at work. I mean, mold right was a big part of our lives from the beginning in 76 when Dad started it. But even prior to that, I remember when mold right was his little tool dye shop in Montreal, in Quebec.
Okay.
That's the actual origination of the company and the name. it was kind of a vivid memories of it, but I do remember going to the shop and having an old car wreck place next door. We used to play around in the cars while we were waiting for Pop to get done and get ready to go home and stuff. But again, very vivid. Was very young in my lifetime, so and a long time ago. But then we had a good life in Plattsburgh. We lived close enough where we were able to walk to school and stuff, which was a good way to live. I mean, it was a safe neighborhood, college area, plus with the air base being in the town area, it gave a lot of diversity to people who were coming into the school systems and then leaving the school systems. So you learn a lot about different cultures in different parts of the country just by the people that you met through school, because there was a lot of people that came in at that time. The air base left in '93, so it kind of changed the dynamics of Plattsburgh. Graduating from high school, I took my first road trip on a motorcycle and came down to Florida for a while. Spent a winter down here and kind of just bummed around a little bit, did a few different things, enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
I then came back to Plattsburgh for Diane's wedding, and ended up staying in Plattsburgh, getting back in with the business. Mentioning earlier, the business is a big part of us growing up, even when we were younger and kids and going through school. We seemed to work there either in the evenings or over on the weekends and stuff of that nature. So it was always a big part of our growing up, and so then came back to the business and worked from basically being a janitor and cleaning toilets and things of that nature to different jobs throughout the company. Many years being there, and then in 2010 when we sold it, I had look to come and spend more time down here in Florida. You know, again, I have a lot of good, vivid memories of being in Canada, of different things that happened in Canada. I remember like how quickly he was to react to when Paul got bit by a dog that was down the street when we lived in Chateauguay. You know, and just how fast he was and how quick he was to, you know, run to help when it came to different things like that. A lot of good times were spent traveling because we did play hockey, and we all sort of like traveled many different places during the weekend. And you know, Pop would when he could take the time and join us, and then some of those convoys of trying to get to different arenas back in the day were a lot different than what most people can really understand, and people my age can kind of understand it, but you know, again, there was a cars weren't as well equipped as they are today. A lot of station wagons, and you are basically using a convoy with CBs to talk to your fellow people, your teammates, so to speak. One of Pop's favorite things, and it still is being by the water. I mean, he's always loved being by the water, and he's you know, I guess being born in England, when you live on an island, you want to be by the water. But so that's just been one of his things forever, and we've always had boats, and you know, spending time on the water with Pop. There was one time when that boat that I'm talking about, the sailboat, the Sonic, I mean, it's a 23-foot Sonic sailboat. It's got a main and a jig, and we really didn't know how to sail that well. We were really kind of newbies and stuff, and so a friend of mine and I are out sailing at one time. We cut the mast in half. I mean, it just broke right in half, right in the middle of the lake, and the sails all just went down to the bottom of the, you know, and the rigging was still kind of on it and everything. And I don't know how, but you know, that whole adrenaline thing happens when certain, you know, dangers happen. We pulled all that rigging back up on the boat, and we got it all back on the boat. Really? And we got the boat back to shore. I thought it was, you know, it was done, because Pop wasn't even in town. I mean, we were just kind of going out, and he didn't lose his cool on it. You know, I mean, it was like, okay, let's see what we can do, and we repaired it and sailed it, and it was good ever since. You know, kind of thing. But you know, it's just one of those times where yes, you could get mad, but he never really lost his cool on some scenarios that could have, like, you would see somebody maybe get really upset with. And you know, another time when it was I think the statute of limitations has run out of this, but we were living in the Cliff Haven home, and just around after high school, we were having a party that we just seemed to not find a place where it was conducive for us to be able to have the kind of time we were having. So we ended up at the old house on Olivetti, which we still owned. Being that it was new that we still owned it and everything, and there wasn't a lot of changes done to it, I still remembered ways to get into it. I mean, it was, we lived there for many years, so we were able to get into the house and in time finish the rest of our party up until about an hour or two into it. Another knock on the door comes, and it's the Plattsburgh's Finest decided that someone saw me breaking into the house and all this. So, okay, so they gather everybody up, and now we're all in, really big trouble and stuff. And but most of us are of age. I mean, because at that time the drinking age was 18.
Yeah.
It's just
right.
It was the places and stuff. So there was 5-6 policemen there, and they all took our names and our everything, and we all thinking we were all in big trouble and stuff. And my dad came in the door, and he's like, "Okay, what's going on?" And at the time, the police go on to explain to him exactly what happened and stuff. And my dad says, "Okay," he says, "So why are they all still here?" He's like, "Well, we were holding them, if you want to hold charges or anything." He's like, "No." He says, "Tell them to go home." He's like, "You don't want to call it?" He's like, "No." He says, "They're kids. I mean, there's no real crime. They didn't do anything. Nothing. They're looking for a place to, So again, that was more his sort of mentality of that type of thing. It wasn't, "Oh my gosh, yes, get him and him." It was. But that's how he sort of like handled things a little differently than what you may expect.
No, when I was a kid, I had just about everything that Johnny Cash made, sang, and it was really good. And I sent my Grundig tape recorder to have it fixed, and they lost all my tapes. So.
Oh, come on.
So, and then when Johnny Cash came to Plattsburgh, I thought that was a big deal.
What year was that?
I don't remember what year it was, but it wasn't. I don't know. I don't remember. But it was a show he was doing. He was on his way to Montreal, and he stopped in Plattsburgh.
Oh, that's awesome.
And somebody told me that Louis Armstrong one time stopped in Plattsburgh.
I heard that. And don't forget that Bruce Jenner trained in Plattsburgh.
Oh, right. Yeah, a lot of the runners were there, weren't they?
Yeah, for the decathlon.
I think the president was there at that time.
Which one?
Whoever was president.
Do you remember the first time you and I met?
No.
That's great. I made quite an impact then. You dropped Gary and Scott off at my apartment.
Scott Sage?
Scott Warland. His fraternity
Brian.
brother.
Oh, okay.
And I remember meeting you in the car. You were dropping him off. I went out to the car. It was on 122 Court Street.
Oh, okay.
In Plattsburgh, and we ended up. I didn't even really know your son at all. I just met him recently, and so you dropped him off, and then it was like maybe 6 months after that is when I officially was invited to meet you at your house.
Right, I had to go and see you first. I'm very particular who came to my house.
So I was like all nervous and jerky, and
Who, I was?
No, yeah, well, we both were, because you knew I was coming. So I was nervous and jerky, and I met you, and you were just so friendly, and it was you had those usual big family gatherings, and
right.
I remember being on the phone with my mother, and she says, "Now behave yourself. No, don't start drinking right away, and don't remember who you are." And I'm like, "Okay, so this is what it was. You offered me a beer."
Oh.
And I said, "No, I'm good, thank you." And you're like, "What?" A lot of men that I've met who are successful had to take a risk somewhere. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Your biggest risk when you were
When I started my business.
Yeah.
I borrowed. Actually, I mortgaged my house, or second mortgage on my house, and interest rates were pretty high then. And then when I started my business, I mean, interest rates were up to 20%.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking 18. Okay.
20%, yeah. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you take a risk when you borrow money at 20%. That's a lot.
That's a huge risk.
Yeah. But it worked out. I mean, it used to scare me at one time, but then you got used to it. Well, I would say I'm going to pay the employees first, and then anybody gets paid then.
So how did you manage that? Like if you were low?
It always worked out. I did. I tried not to borrow. And I think that's a throwback from when I was in England. I didn't like owing people money. Whenever I could, I would buy it. Whether it took me a year, I'd make a deal with the people I was buying my machines from. Say, no, I'll pay you in a year. So they would not charge me an interest then. I'd say, I'll try your machines and we'll get through it. So, I mean, actually, I got to the stage where I didn't owe the banks any money. That was really good.
Wow.
And I tried to keep it that way. And it isn't the best way, I don't think, to do business. I think the best thing to do is use other people's money. But I just didn't want to fail.
No.
I knew the banks were there always. They were always asking me, do you need any money? And I'd say, no, I'm fine. And I got through it that way. And that's the way I liked it. Even when I sold the business, I hardly had to pay anybody off. You know, I didn't know the banks. I just owed the people I'd been buying materials from. Well, that worked out really great. And I owned the buildings, which was good. So,
I'm sure the buyers thought the same thing. Less red tape. Here it is. It's a clean cut deal.
right, yeah.
You know. Now, when you say you're a tool and die maker, not a lot of people would understand what that means.
Well, it's sort of tooling for machines that make the product.
Okay.
So we made the tools that make, like, I worked on cars, the hood of a car. I remember I had to change the hood of a car one time and chip something out. The tool was already made, but then we added we took a tool and die maker to fix that.
I have a smile on my face because what movie you always quote it?
Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, it's The Graduate. What did he say? He was talking to Dustin Hoffman, who was Benjamin.
Plastics is the industry. Is good.
I have one advice for you.
Plastics.
Plastics. So it's pretty cool. But you know, I think that
I tell people I watched the movie and that's why I went to
you want, yeah. And you love that part.
I noticed you moved your glass so it looks like I'm the only one drinking.
I moved my glass because I didn't want to interfere with my face.
Oh, okay.
What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Pardon?
What gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, what do you...
Usually we'll go to the bathroom.
I thought about that after I asked the question. I'm like, well, I might have to pee. Maybe I'll smoke a cigarette on the way.
And then I have to make sure I don't step on Buddy.
Oh.
Because he's usually under the clothes somewhere in my bed. And I try to get out so I don't wake him up.
Oh, the dogs. They're the dogs. Oh, gosh. They definitely have a purpose in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
But seriously, though, I mean, what would you say about...
I find lately I'm better than I was a week ago. Before I'd go to bed about 7:30, 8:30, and I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up maybe, I don't know, like 6:30 in the morning, with Buddy licking my ears or something. And just lately, I've been sleeping later, but don't get to sleep till, like last night, I was up at 2 o'clock, I got myself a coffee. I came out, made myself a coffee, and went and sat down in the chair and watched television for a while. And then eventually got back into bed, probably about 2 o'clock, and fell asleep. But then woke up about 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's late for me when I wake up like that.
During that you know, wartime and before that wartime, what was it like over there as far as activities of play?
We'd go to the woods a lot. Bunch of guys would go to the woods and play in the woods
Yeah.
and look for bullets
Oh my gosh.
or bombs.
Oh, I knew this was going to take a
The,
different
the
take.
bombs that didn't go off. We take them to the police station.
So you handled bombs. Now, couldn't they eventually have gone off in your hand?
Probably. We weren't supposed to touch them, but we'd go and find them. Bombs that didn't blow up. We found a lot of bullets.
What kind of bullets?
Well, from the rifles. I guess the soldiers must have left them there, lost it or whatever. We did, and it's funny because I often think about that. I think, I wonder who's still alive. You know, because I never thought I'd live to be 83 or 84. And I think, I wonder if any of my friends still alive. But
Well,
I don't keep in touch with anybody from when I was a kid, so I don't know.
do you think that you were maybe one of the only ones that really moved abroad? And do you think they're probably still
Probably
in the same
not. I
neighborhood?
mean,
or-
probably some of the other kids did too.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I often think about them, like, I wonder what they're doing now after, you know, what happened to them.
Think about what they would say about you.
That cheap bastard that used to come to he used to sell his brother's stuff.
Yeah, I know that guy. I don't know.
That I find pretty amazing, actually. I don't have kids, so you know, to have the love of your child and the love of your child is something I'm not exposed to, so I don't understand it. A disappointment in my life, not a regret, just a sort of a disappointment. But so you're never supposed to you know, bury your children. Is the way it goes. And for him to have to do two is incredible. That he is able to keep himself as well composed as he is, both publicly and privately. You know, I mean, I know he's not well health-wise, but there's many times I pop over to see him and stuff like that, and it could very easily be cowering in a corner, you know, with a bottle of booze in his hand, you know, of what he's gone through and stuff. And not even to mention, you know, the prostate cancer and, you know, other things and his heart issues and all these other things. But yet he's not, you know, he's still out there fighting and trying to do what he can to be, you know, a part of everyone's life still, you know. And I think that's important because, you know, hopefully the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren will get to spend more time with him and to realize his wisdom and have some of his aura maybe rub off on them.